Love my enemies? Of course I love my enemies. I'm a Christian. Of course I follow Jesus' teachings. And yes, I love everybody, just as I'm called to do. How you doing at that, really? Let's get a little honest about that today. Life can be quite the bending road. Sometimes it's nice and gentle, and sometimes it's a bit scary. The truth is that we will all experience a difficult bend in our road at some point. But it's also true that God will see us through. Let's travel this bending road together and help each other in our journey. Please remember to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel to catch other videos along the way. Hey, welcome back to the Bending Road. Glad you could join me today. I hope that things are going well for you. I hope that you just know the presence of Christ in your life. I hope you know the power of God to direct you and to help you follow the commands of God. I've been reading an interesting book, and I'm not sure exactly why I'm reading this book. Okay, so that sounds a little odd, but I'm not sure where I found out about this book. So I listen to a lot of podcasts and I hear a lot of speakers, and so when I hear somebody recommend a book, or maybe I'll hear an author talking about his or her book, and I will make a note, or I'll find it on Amazon and I'll put it in my wish list and say, yeah, maybe I ought to read that book at some point. Well, this particular book, and then occasionally I'll go through my wish list, and if they come up on sale or something, I'll take a look at that. So this particular book hit one of those $1.99 sales, and I thought, all right, $1.99. I will almost always pay $1.99 for a book, so that was good. And I began to read it, but I could not for the life of me remember where I heard about this. I mean, it just wasn't a random find. It had to have come from someone. So anyway, the book is called The True Believer: Thoughts on the Nature of Mass Movements. Now, the title doesn't grab me. The author is Eric Hoffer, and I don't know Eric Hoffer. I'm not off the top of my head anyway. I think it's 2011, but I'd have to look that up. So it's not an old book, but I thought this could, it was on my list, so I'll read it, see what it says. Well, my first opinion is that it is like way over my head. The reading is very difficult. It's thick reading. It's like slogging through a swamp trying to read my way through this book. The words are big. They have to be thought about. The sentences are long, and in your brain, you're trying to get it all sorted out. I found it just really heady and difficult. But I have been pulling out nuggets, and what I decided to do was I was going to read straight through the book, and I'm almost to the end. And when I finish, I want to go back and I want to read it again. Maybe not right away, but I will read it again some point and see if I can digest that information. Yeah, sometimes it's hard. Anyway, I found a couple of things, and as I go through books, I usually highlight things or I make little notes on the side. And in this book, I highlighted a couple of things that really kind of struck me. And one of the first things in this chapter, so he's talking about the nature of mass movements, why people join mass movements, how really bad mass movements have garnered support and collected followers and people. How does that happen? And one of the things he's talking about is hatred. How people fall into hatred and use hatred as maybe a distraction or to make themselves feel better. And here's a quote. He says, to wrong those we hate is to add fuel to our hatred. Now, I absolutely believe that. I also believe that unforgiveness will add fuel to our hatred. Conversely, to treat an enemy with magnanimity is to blunt our hatred for him. This made me think of Proverbs 25, verses 21 and 22. If your enemy is hungry, give him food to eat. If he is thirsty, give him water to drink. In doing this, you will heap burning coals on his head, and the Lord will reward you. That's exactly where that idea comes from. To wrong those we hate adds fuel to our hatred. Consequently, to treat an enemy with magnanimity is to blunt our hatred for him. And when I think if I asked you, do you hate anybody? You'd say, no, I don't hate. Well, and I think we want to believe that of ourselves. I really do. I think we want to believe that we are absolutely kind and loving people. But I have been told that, one person said to me that if you believe that, I just am not even going to listen to you anymore. I won't give mic time to people who disagree with me. Okay, well, disagreement is kind of healthy and that's important. But in saying that we won't give mic time to somebody is to shut them down. And I don't think that's a loving thing to do. I think that falls more into the hate-filled category. But we don't want to think we hate. Luke 27:31 says, but to you who are listening, I say, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who mistreat you. And if someone slaps you on the one cheek, turn to them the other also. If someone takes your coat, do not withhold your shirt from them. Give to everyone who asks you. And if anyone takes what belongs to you, do not demand it back. Do to others as you would have them do to you. And we all know that, right? We know that. But this verse goes beyond that idea of, just have lovey-dovey feelings for everybody. Don't be hateful. You can be angry, you can be resentful, you can be unforgiving. It seems like you can call them names, you can berate them, you can deny them mic time, but that's not hate. Our culture has really divided these things out. We've defined love as that ooey gooey feeling and hate as like some horrid thing. But I think love is about action too, right? Bless those who persecute or curse you. Pray for those who mistreat you. Turn the other cheek. Offer your shirt if they take your coat. Do whatever is necessary. Give them whatever you need to give them to love them. I think this redefines love here. Jesus really redefines love. I think he also redefines hate, because to not do these things, to not bless those who curse us, to not pray for those who mistreat us, to not turn the other cheek, that falls into the category of hatred, I believe. And when I look at posts on Facebook and comments I've heard, every time people are disrespectful to the President of the United States, whether you love him or hate him, right? Whether you agree with him or don't, to be disrespectful is not loving. To call him names is not loving. To call anybody names is not loving. So I hear an awful lot of that, and it's just it just is not loving it, and it really kind of gets under my skin. So then I was looking at Romans, and Romans says, do not pay anyone evil for evil. Be careful to do what is right in the eyes of everyone. If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Do not take revenge, my dear friends, but leave room for God's wrath. For it is written, it is mine to avenge. I will repay, says the Lord. On the contrary, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him something to drink. In doing this, you will heap burning coals on his head. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. Lot of meat in that passage, right? So that whole idea of revenge, that's not ours. If somebody's done something to hurt you, or a lot of times what's happening today is we get angry on behalf of somebody else. I see hatred from individuals on behalf of the immigrants who are being deported. I see anger on behalf of people who are in the LGBTQ community. Even if you're not in those, you're allies. And I understand being allies, and I think it's important to help people and come alongside of people. That's kind of our role. That's part of loving. But to be angry and beat up on a third party because somebody else is getting hurt, I think that's triangulating ourselves into something that's not healthy. I think we need to be careful about that. If that ill has not been done to me directly, that's not my hatred. That's not my unforgiveness to hang on to. I hope that makes sense. Anyway, this passage goes on and says, as far as it depends on you, live at peace. Not be angry, not be hateful, not call names, live at peace. And it says, do not take revenge. It's God's job. And again, it goes on, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him something to drink. In doing this, you'll heap burning coals on his head. I saw this. I saw this play out. I had two individuals in my life. This one, they had reason to have issue with each other, I'll say. This one really hated this one and wrote that individual a scathing note, which I didn't find out until a long time after. This individual did nothing in response. They put the letter in a drawer. That's how I found it later. And continued when we were all together to offer hospitality to this individual. They were kind. They offered to help. Fixed their favorite food occasionally. I mean, it was really kind and generous toward them. And that goes back to that first quote, to treat an enemy with magnanimity. I can't say that word. Magnanimity. This is going to be an outtake, okay? Anyway, with fairness and generosity is to blunt our hatred for him. This person was blunting their hatred, but against the other one, and came to be whole and healthy, and be able to be with the other individual. The other one was never able to reconcile that. There was burning coals heaped on his head. And it's not that we shouldn't pray for that. We shouldn't go, oh yeah, let's give them some pain and burn their hair off. That's not what that's talking about. You let it go. It'll happen naturally. There's another quote from that book that I found. It says, passionate hatred. And we see this, right? Watch some YouTube videos. Watch some news reports. You will see passionate hatred. Passionate hatred can give meaning and purpose to an empty life. Thus, people haunted by the purposelessness of their lives try to find a new content, not only by dedicating themselves to a holy cause, but also by nursing a fanatical grievance. A mass movement offers them unlimited opportunities for both. Let me just unpack that, because I got to unpack it in my own head. So that passionate hatred can fulfill when we have that empty, meaningless, purposeless life. That we don't have enough to focus on in our own life, enough to get excited about in our own life. So we find somebody to hate and we fill ourselves with that. I think that's what's happening in a lot of places today. And people who are, it says, haunted by that, with not enough content in their lives, dedicate themselves to a cause. I'm gonna be an ally of this group, or I'm gonna fight for that group. And they nurse this fanatical grievance. They nurse that passionate hatred. A lot of mass movements offer that, right? When you see people coming together in these riots, they're bigger than protests. When they all come out in the street and they're breaking things and burning things and damaging things and hurting people, that's not a protest. That's a riot. That's passionate hatred that they're trying to use to give meaning and purpose to their empty lives. Let's see, what else do I have? Oh, I have another quote here. When we renounce the self and become part of a compact whole, which means when we no longer pay attention to mind our own business, we'll say that, and become part of this mass movement, we not only renounce personal advantage, but we also rid ourselves of personal responsibility. And I think this is huge in our culture, right? We are not minding our own business. We get involved in everybody else's business, all the other things that are going on in the world. And when we're part of this mass movement, we are no longer responsible. It goes on and says, when we lose our individual independence, as we're part of this corporate mass movement, we find a new freedom. Freedom to hate and bully and lie and torture and murder and betray without shame or remorse. Why? Because we're supporting this good cause and we're part of this mass movement, and it's what everybody else has done. Now, as my mother used to ask me, if all your friends jumped off a bridge, would you do it too? Well, jumping off a bridge, maybe that could be fun for me. But some of these mass protests or this online hatred and bashing and name calling, when we separate ourselves and make ourselves part of this group, we kind of give ourselves permission to do whatever they do. And that's not what Jesus calls us to do. Jesus calls us to live in love. Jesus calls us to be fulfilled in loving others, in following Him, in obedience. And when the scripture says that we need to treat others better than ourselves, when we need to do to others what we want them to do to us, how we want them to treat us, that can never mean calling people names. It can never mean being out there and bashing and hating. And anyone who is caught up in this momentum of passionate hatred, we need to check ourselves, folks. I can understand this from those who do not call themselves Christian. I am not speaking to those who do not call themselves Christian. But if you call yourself Christian, then we are called not to anger and hatred, not to calling names, not to berating and bashing, regardless of what is happening. We are called to love and care for, and yes, we can speak our mind. I do it all the time, but it's not my place to harm somebody else. And even if they have harmed first, right? Let's say, we assume that ICE is doing harm. We don't all agree on that, but let's say ICE is doing harm. Just because they're doing harm and they become maybe your enemy does not give you the right to hate them and bash them and berate them or physically hurt them. First of all, they're doing what they're told, right? They're following orders. But second of all, what are we called to do to our enemies? Feed them, love them, clothe them. Love your enemies. Pray for those who persecute you. Are you on your knees praying for them? Now, I don't consider ICE my enemy. Please don't go away from here thinking that. I don't. I believe they're doing their jobs. I believe they're trying to do it in the right way and doing it well. I believe that there's going to be mistakes that happen. It happens in every single profession out there. Anyway, that's just my disclaimer. But I have an individual out there who will not insist, I will not pray for 47. I will not pray for the orange man. I will not, and this isn't just about the president, but if you are refusing to pray for our president or anyone else, how do you call yourself Christian? You are not following one of the main tenets of Jesus' teaching. And I hear in the same voice somebody who says, well, if you don't stand up for all the immigrants and you want them deported, then you're not loving, and Jesus tells us to love everybody. Okay, well, I don't believe that's true, but you can't say that on one hand and call the president names and disrespect him on the other. Can't do that. Can't do that. Jesus says in Matthew 5:21 and 22, you've heard it said to people long ago, you shall not murder. And anyone who murders will be subject to judgment. But I tell you that anyone who is angry with a brother or sister will be subject to judgment. Anyone who is angry with a brother or sister will be subject to judgment. Again, anyone who says to a brother or sister, Raka, is answerable to the court. And anyone who says, you fool, will be in dangers of the fire of hell. And we're not, and some of the language that I hear of what we call people, we all, and I'm conservative, Republican, Democrat, liberal, progressive, whatever you call yourself, it doesn't matter. Yes, we don't murder. We all know that. Most of us haven't murdered. But being angry with our brother or sister, calling them names, calling them a fool, refusing to pray, refusing to bless them even though they curse you. All of that. You'll be in dangers of the fire of hell. We've got to get it together, folks. I don't care what side you come down on. We've got to make sure that we are not harboring that hatred in our hearts and continually and fueling that hatred in our hearts. I think Jesus is going to have more to say about the hatred and anger that we have in our hearts than a lot of things that people get uptight about these days. We really need to check our hearts. Check your heart today. Where is your anger, hatred level for whomever? And right now, take time to pray for them. Bless them. If you can take them a cup of cold water, do it. Do something. Do something to begin to dissipate that hatred. Forgive where you can forgive. Yes, we can be allies to the hurting, the downtrodden, the marginalized, all of those. Yes, we should. But hatred is not the answer to the problem. I hope I've given you some things to think about today. I have some things to think about today. I need to check my own heart. I need to watch my own words, my own anger levels, how I feel about the individual. Now, I can be upset about a particular situation, but I got to be careful with directing it to the individual, putting that anger or hatred on an individual. We got to be careful. I pray that you have been compelled to check your own heart and make sure that your heart is in line with Jesus' teachings, just as I need to do. You have a great day. I will see you next week along the bending road. It was great to have you join me today along this bending road. You can connect with me on social media or on my website at bendingroad.weebly.com. I would love to pray for you as you navigate the bends in your road. Remember, when you see the bend in your road, do not be afraid. Take the hand of God and keep walking. You are not alone.